All right, let's dive into this explainer and really unpack Homer's epic, the Odyssey. We're going to strip away the surface-level myth to reveal some absolutely fascinating psychological metaphors, intricate societal structures, and finally, a very real modern-day geological mystery that might literally change how we look at this ancient world.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the 10-year journey, move into monsters and metaphors, then explore the true power of women, the sacred code of Xenia, and wrap up by trying to find the real Ithaca.
Section 1. The 10-year journey. The sheer scale of an epic voyage.
To really get this epic, we have to grasp the exhausting scale facing Odysseus, the cunning mastermind behind the Trojan horse. Just look at this timeline. After 10 grueling years fighting that war, he spent 3 chaotic years wandering the seas facing terrifying curses. Then he was held captive by the nymph Calypso for 7 long years. I mean, imagine being away from your family for 2 full decades. And it all culminated in just one incredibly bloody day when he finally returned to Ithaca. He survived the staggering timeline entirely by his wits and just unyielding determination.
Moving on to Section 2, Monsters and Metaphors. Greek fears personified.
So, these obstacles weren't just random monsters for our hero to fight, they were actually deep psychological metaphors for everything civilized society feared. Take Polyphemus, for example. When the Cyclops asks for his name, Odysseus famously says he's nobody. Later, when Odysseus blinds him and the Cyclops screams for help, he yells to his neighbors that nobody is hurting him, so they totally ignore his cries. It perfectly symbolizes the triumph of civilized wit and intellect over primitive brute force.
And every beast tested a completely different facet of Greek civilization. Navigating Scylla and Charybdis represented the terrible sacrifices of leadership, forcing Odysseus to actually sacrifice his own men to survive. The Lotus Eaters, they embodied the terrifying temptation of total apathy, eating a fruit that makes you completely forget your homeland. And the Sirens represented the extreme, dangerous seduction of art. It was an allure so powerful that Odysseus had to literally tie himself to a mast and plug his crew's ears with beeswax just to survive hearing their song.
Section 3. The true power of women, puppet masters of a patriarchal world.
Underneath all these monsters is a deeply patriarchal society of kings and warriors. But if we look a little closer, women are actually the ones pulling the strings. Let's compare the power dynamics here. Odysseus exerts power outwardly, right? Crossing the globe with a sword. Penelope, on the other hand, is confined to her home, besieged by aggressive suitors. Yet she promises to pick a husband once she finishes weaving a burial shroud, only to secretly unravel it every single night. For 3 years, she brilliantly weaponizes the very limits of her gender to stall these men and silently protect the throne of Ithaca.
As scholar Helene Foley points out, this constraint highlights the geographical limits of Penelope's authority. She can stop change, but she can't induce it. Now, this presents a really fascinating contrast with other female characters in the story, like the witch Circe. Circe exerts intense physical power by using magic to literally transform Odysseus's men into swine. She's playfully and kind of ironically reclaiming domestic power by domesticating the men themselves.
And, well, we can't talk about female power without talking about the divine. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, acts as Odysseus's ultimate protection from the shadows. She strategically guides his journey, even allowing him to suffer so he can earn true, immortal hero's glory, which the Greeks called kleos. Even the mighty king of the gods, Zeus, is swayed by Athena's arguments on Mount Olympus. It just goes to show that the survival and success of the great male hero entirely depends on female intervention.
Which brings us to Section 4, the sacred code of Xenia, the social glue of ancient Greece.
Stepping beyond character dynamics for a second, the entire moral fabric of the Odyssey is woven together by xenia. Now, this wasn't just a polite formality, like offering a guest a glass of water when they come over. No, it was a sacred, unbreakable moral obligation of hospitality and mutual respect between host and guest. It was guarded fiercely by Zeus himself, and you usually honored Xenia through massive, elaborate feasts.
Historian James Wright breaks down exactly why these feasts were so vital. They weren't just parties. They were absolutely critical political and social tools used to mobilize labor, forge cooperative alliances, invest surpluses for profit, and create complex networks of reciprocal debt. And, importantly in the epic, they were used to honor the gods through animal sacrifice. It was basically how their entire society functioned and survived.
So, knowing how sacred Xenia was, I want you to ask yourself something. How does the epic punish bad hosts and terrible guests? What actually happens when you violate the ultimate law of the land?
The answer? Utter, catastrophic ruin. Just look at the track record here. Paris was a guest of Menelaus when he stole Helen, which triggered the entire 10-year Trojan War. The Cyclops Polyphemus was brutally blinded because instead of feeding his guests, he ate them. And Penelope's suitors, who abused their status as guests by consuming Odysseus's food and estate for years, they met a gruesome end. Odysseus executing the suitors with his great bow is the ultimate bloody restoration of Xenia. It's him rebalancing the moral scales of the universe.
And finally, Section 5, Finding the Real Ithaca, a paradigm shift from myth to science.
Okay, let's pivot from ancient literary themes to an incredible 3,000-year-old modern scientific mystery. We have artifacts like this spectacular marble head of Odysseus, excavated from the Tiberias Grotto, which shows how deeply grounded this myth is in physical history. But for millennia, scholars have been totally baffled because Homer's exact geographical descriptions of Ithaca simply do not match the modern Greek island that goes by the name Ithaca today. The topography is wrong, the bays are wrong, literally nothing lines up.
But recent detective work by researchers like Robert Bittlestone and geologist John Underhill suggests something pretty incredible. We might have been looking at the map wrong all along. They proposed a theory that revolutionizes our understanding of this Bronze Age text by combining literary clues with hardcore geology.
Using modern satellite imagery, ground-penetrating radar, and historical seismology, they discovered something absolutely mind-blowing. Step 1, there used to be a marine passage called Strabo's Channel, separating a western landmass, the Peliki Peninsula, from the larger island of Cephalonia. Step 2, over centuries, catastrophic earthquakes triggered massive rockfalls. And Step 3, the channel completely filled in with debris, literally fusing the two islands together. This means the ancient true Ithaca was actually that separate western island hiding in plain sight as a peninsula attached to Cephalonia.
It leaves us with a thrilling, provocative question to wrap up this explainer. If the magical home of Odysseus, a place debated for thousands of years, is actually just buried under earthquake debris, what other ancient legends are literally resting right beneath our feet, just waiting for the right science to uncover them? Something to think about the next time you read a myth.